right, we're recording. All right, welcome to our last ethical hacking, where we'll be covering step 4, maintaining access, and step 5, covering tracks and reporting. And this will be finishing off our ethical hacking series. So I wanted to start off with some interesting ethical hacking facts. India currently leads the world in ethical hackers with 23% of ethical hackers living there, and US is a close second with 20%. HackerOne also says that it's paid out 23 million in bug bounties during 2017, but that expects to climb up to about $100 million by the end of 2020. And finally, ethical hacking is often referred to as penetration testing, and it's usually not an entry-level role, which some people are shocked about, but you can get right out of college, but you need some years of experience either as a security analyst or engineer, usually to get your foot in the door as an ethical hacker. All right, moving on to maintaining access. So some common ways to maintain access is backdoors, which is a malware type that negates normal authentication procedures to access a system, which as a result, remote access will then be granted to resources within the application, therefore allowing the hacker to maintain access. And then keyloggers are activity monitoring software programs that give hackers access to personal data. Personal data can be like passwords, credit card numbers, and websites that you visit. So again, logging all the keystrokes, they can maintain access with that as well. The third way is command and control. So a command and control server is a computer controlled by an attacker or cyber criminal, which is used to send commands to systems compromised by malware and receive stolen data from a target network. And the next one, the fourth one, is Trojan. So a Trojan or a Trojan horse is a type of malware that is often disguised as legitimate software. So hackers can use this as a way to maintain access or sometimes even gain access into a user system. And for today, we'll be going over rootkits. And just the reason that ethical hacking, and this is an important step, is to test and see if they're able to maintain access, because many hackers do this as they do not want to go through the process of regaining access over and over. All right, so a rootkit can be simply defined as a set of software tools that enables an unauthorized user to gain control of a computer system without being detected. So some interesting facts about rootkits is, first, one of the most dangerous cyber attacks have been proven to be a rootkit just because it can get so deep into the OS. Second, rootkits can now bypass the security sandbox. So you thought your sandbox was safe? Nope, it might not be. And third, so not much data is released on how pricey rootkits can be to a company. But for a case such as the mid-2000s Sony CD case that we'll talk about in a bit, the rootkit cost them almost about $6 million. And that's just for a company that had to release the data because it affects their users. Let's see further. So rootkit is derived from the concept of root access in the operating system. And so I'll just get started with going on and explain. So for as long as cyber criminals have been cooking up malicious software to do stuff like steal your precious data, the security industry has been thinking of creative names for their little schemes, such as we talked about before: Trojans, worms, ransomware. So you get the idea. And one of the most sinister forms of malware, like we're talking about, to be prevented from today is the dreaded rootkit. Like with a lot of other threats to your system, the name rootkit reveals that it's derived from the concept of root access in the operating system, which allows a user's broad permissions to change files and settings. Other rootkits can access the off-limits parts of the computer. Both types of rootkits serve the same general function to conceal either their own presence or the presence of another piece of malware so that they can carry out its nefarious deeds on your system without you ever knowing. It's because of this concealing behavior that rootkits are often very difficult to remove. So thinking about what I just mentioned a moment ago with the mid 2000 Sony hack, I just want to explain it a bit. So many users in the mid 2000s found out that they realized that Sony had shipped out 22 million music CDs with rootkits designed for copy protection. So originally they were making software with copy protection, but there was actually a rootkit that was embedded in that. So these rootkits hid the DRM software, which limited what users could do with their optical drives and also caused serious system slowdowns. It also introduced a ton of security flaws that other malware creators were able to take advantage of. And then when Sony finally released a removal tool after the news of the rootkit went viral and all, it actually caused more issues because the vulnerability was broadcast out. So therefore, more people were taking advantage of it. So how do rootkits hide themselves anyways? While some rootkits just inject themselves into your programs somewhat like traditional computer viruses, the more dangerous forms run as part of your operating system's kernel, which is the core part of your OS that allows your programs to communicate with your hardware through things like device drivers. Since drivers usually run in kernel mode, many rootkits disguise themselves as drivers, which is why you should only download drivers from trusted sources like the manufacturer's website. So no matter how bad you want to download, like your fancy new graphics card or something else, don't do it. Just download it from the manufacturer's site because it is a big risk. But so what happens when it makes a kernel mode rootkit so insidious? What really makes it so insidious is that they essentially appear to be part of the OS itself, meaning you can't really trust your antivirus program to detect it or anything else your system says about itself for that matter. And as if that wasn't bad enough, other kinds of rootkits even go beyond infecting your OS kernel by doing things like contaminating your hard drive boot and your hard drive boot sector. So this is often done to break the encryption to get into your system's firmware, such as your motherboard or GPU BIOS. If that happens, not even completely reformatting your PC will help. So let's go into rootkit types. There are more than just these two rootkit types, but we're going to go over the most common ones. So the first common one is user mode rootkits. These rootkits function in user mode or the low privilege level of the processor ring, which you can see the ring pictured below. The effect of these types of rootkits limits on the user level only via an affected application. If the rootkit wants to affect other applications, they need to do the same work in every application's memory space, which can be quite repetitive. So they operate mostly by hijacking or hooking function calls. A second type that is the most common is kernel mode rootkits. And these operate on kernel mode or highest privilege level in the kernel space. It makes rootkits powerful as they reside in the lowest operating system level, which means its controlling capability is strong over the hardware and operating system. Most kernel level rootkits take advantage of hooking execution, transmitting to kernel mode and utilizing a low-level kernel mode or LKM to enhance kernel functionalities with the rootkit. It also has the bootkit, which is a subtype, and it affects startup programs like MBR master boot on. There are 3 common rootkit techniques, which you might have heard me mention briefly. So the first technique is hooking. And this is the most common function of all rootkits, which involves hooking the application's execution flow. They redirect the normal flow of execution and point to its code. It is internally done with the API calls and the system function calls, which are intercepted. The second type is DLL injection. This is the mechanism of loading a dynamic link library, or DLL, into a running process address space. In malware and rootkits, the DLL injection attack is a malicious one with a DLL file that exports malicious functions and patches or modifies the registry key. Since these malicious DLLs can be loaded easily, it can be injected into a process such as user32 DLL. And the last rootkit technique is kernel object manipulation. This is considered to be the most advanced technology used by malware writers. The type of this attack contains kernel structure modifications, and it bypasses the kernel object manager to avoid access check, therefore not being caught, right? So most of the kernel's data structure gets modified as the kernel itself is under the siege of this attack. So even though this isn't the most advanced, it is actually not even close to easy to do. So the technique needs to be at that advanced level to get this done. There's no running scripts. And that's because manipulating the kernel object, you need, and the hacker needs, actual understanding of that object in like vast detail to do so. Okay, so going on, if you have a rootkit, how do you get rid of it? So admittedly, this is a challenge. Larger organizations have tried strategies like logging suspicious access requests through a firewall or dumping everything in a system's memory to look for malicious code. But these aren't the kinds of things a home user can easily do. Modern motherboards with UEFI BIOS have some features to block rootkits, such as the sector boot, but the solution has been criticized for keeping a user from doing legitimate things like installing multiple operating systems. So while some similar rootkits can be detected and removed by your favorite anti-malware program, the best strategy and the best counter strategy is to just be super careful about what you download. If a rootkit is detected, the only sure way to get rid of it is to completely erase the computer's hard drive or formatting the operating system to restall it. Or, like we mentioned before, if you get the really bad one, not much you can do. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Roswell to start the demo portion of our workshop.
Hello, guys. Now we're going to be exchanging the screen sharing.
Yeah.
All right, you guys see everything on my end?
I don't see anything.
Do you see this?
I don't see anything.
What? Let me try this again. Let me.
I'm sure you into is
It says the stream has ended.
Oh, what? Oh, you have to close Tala's stream and then switch to my screen or the other stream that's in there.
Oh, okay. I see it now.
Okay, so just verifying everyone actually sees the code and everything. Okay, so oh, okay, that's good. Then that means I'll go ahead then. Sorry for the delay. Okay, so now we're transitioning over to the actual code portion. So this all looks very complicated. Now this is essentially what a rootkit is. This is what a rootkit looks like. I'm just gonna scroll through it for a little bit, briefly. So yeah, lots of stuff happening. Okay, so now we're gonna go down towards pretty much a basic breakdown of it. Okay, so the code I'm showing you, it shows you how to utilize Python and PowerShell to accomplish the goals of a rootkit. And I highly encourage anyone looking to go into the field of information security to learn Python because it is by far the fastest growing and most popular programming language, utilized both for the purposes of ethical hacking / penetration testing and also for more generalized security work as a whole, ranging from network security to application security to cloud security, you pretty much name it. Now, PowerShell is a cross-platform task automation solution made up of a command line shell. It's a scripting language and a configuration management framework. Useful to know as a complement, but not as all-encompassing like Python is. Like I said earlier, learn Python at the very least if you need programming skills. Okay, so getting back to the code itself. Now, this remote access tool code, it has a certain life cycle to it. Now, the first stage, as we explained earlier, is to bypass all the antivirus, and then it will inject a malicious PowerShell script into the memory. and then it establishes a reverse HTTPS Metasploit connection to the attacker's machine. Once this is done, in order to maintain access, it is going to check every 10 seconds and make sure that that connection is still up and running. Now, within the code itself, here's the part of it where it's actually checking to see if it's a connection. Now you can see here, you're checking to see if the IP is online or not. And if it's not online, then it's going to try and get back online, essentially. Now, basically, of course, like a checks and verifies connection, this is the bulk of the code. This is where most of the work actually goes into, because that's the fundamental function of a rootkit in the first place. And it should also be noted that maintaining continuous access is the key goal here, and it is not advantageous to lose it at any point. So in order to further enhance persistence on the machine, even after the victim realizes what has happened, it will add a startup register key to reconnect to the attacker even after they reboot the machine. This is basically a broad overview of what is happening, now to some of the actual steps themselves. So first, we need to update the viru5 source payload right here, and parameters with your iHost and iPort. This is what they're doing over here. This is your port that you're looking for, and then you can change the source payload name to Google Chrome Auto Launch, which is what they essentially do over here. And here's the main auto launch file right here. Basically, just importing a lot of stuff. And then next week, you can bind this entire rootkit exe file, which stands for execution, and you can bind it with any innocent-looking photo, PDF, Word, or really any kind of file. And you can then use your social engineering skills to send those infected files to unsuspecting victims and get them to open it by disguising it as something innocuous looking. Now, I'm sure this is common to many UTD students, and you have definitely gotten emails that are obviously fake looking, such as emails about fake job offers, or the infamous "you are 1 millionth customer, come claim your prize." And then you are basically directed to click on a sketchy file that's basically just a really weird name. Now these rootkits can easily be attached to those kinds of files and cause you a whole lot of damage, as it is automatically executed as soon as you open it, and it gives that Metasploit connection to your attacker. And it will be extremely difficult to remove, as we have previously said, no matter how good you think your antivirus is. Now, all this code on the GitHub page, it really serves that purpose of acquiring and maintaining access on a target machine. Now, I will say, I will not lie, it is intimidating to look at if you are new to coding. So I always recommend to people to learn from the ground up. Now, I realize, of course, that a lot of people in the cybersecurity club, they happen to also be the ITS program. And fortunately, the ITS program does actually have a Python programming class that can be taken as a guided elective. So it can certainly help you learn that area. But also to keep note of is that there are also countless free quality resources to learn Python from, such as Free Code Camp, Code Academy, and or Data Camp. Although it should be noted that Data Camp focuses more on data analysis. And also some companies like Google, even they have their own learning curriculum published. Although it should be noted that what you need to do is that you need to get a project or two to showcase your skills with Python, and honestly, you'll be internship ready. You'll learn everything on the job, essentially. You learn all those mission-specific skills. Like maybe you want to go into networking, or maybe you want to go deep into application security and go more of a typical software developer route. Although I will also say at the as a conclusion that you don't necessarily need to be a software engineer to work in cybersecurity. But ultimately, learning some of these programming skills will absolutely be beneficial. And so I will leave it off there, and that concludes my part, essentially. All right, back to you, Tala.
All right, sounds good. I will be streaming again, so I'll wait and make sure everyone can see.
Yeah, I see.
Okay. All right, I'll just wait a few more seconds, and we'll have time for questions towards the end. So that was a quick demo of code, and if you want to do some type of lab with rootkits, there's a really good cyber array workshop type of thing that you can do, and it's free. And the link is right there. And I believe links will be put in the chat. And if not, I can place them after I finish talking. All right. So we're just going to quickly talk about covering tracks. So covering tracks is the final step that a ethical hacker will do. So this final stage of ethical hacking test is a process, and then at the end, it's all paperwork. So some common ways to cover a track or cover tracks is that a hacker will want to, first of all, clear event logs. Second, they would want to use maybe an ICMP tunnel, which establishes a covert connection between two remote computers, which would be a client and a proxy. And using an ICMP echo requests and replay packets is another thing you can do. And if you look at the bottom left-hand corner, I put a link where you can read about these covering tracks a bit more in depth. We will talk about a few in a moment, but not all of these. So the next one is the ethical hacker could install reverse HTTP shells on the victim's computer, and they could use this to send communications to the network server. And they can also sometimes view communications, and that's one way they can make sure their tracks are all covered and not being able to be seen. The fourth way is erasing command history, and the fifth way, if the ethical hacker or hacker is in a rush, they can just shred that command history or any files. Okay, so we're going to be going over clearing event logs and clearing history and a little bit on shredding. So clearing event logs, if you're using Metasploit, you would just simply type in clear EV, and you can see a screenshot of what that would look like with wiping the records from application, system, etc. And if you're not aware, these are categories of the event log. So there's a category for applications, a category for system, category for security. So if you just like look at your Windows event log, you can see what I'm talking about right there. If you're on a Linux computer, you could do something like kwrite var log messages and going on to clearing history. So clearing history, you want to think about the size of the history file is determined by the environment variable hissize. So you can check the size of hissize variable by typing echo hissize export hissize equals 0. And going on to shredding, so you would just, if you type in shred -s help, you can have a list of different commands to for shredding, but we'll be going over 3. So if you want to use shredding to overwrite a file, then all you need to do is execute shred with a file name as input. So for example, you could do shred file1.txt if you wanted to just shred that one file. And the second command you could do is to make sure that if you just want to overwrite the file, you can overwrite as many times as you want. So if you wanted to shred -n10 file1.txt, it would overwrite it 10 times. And then if you want to shred to not only overwrite, but also delete the file as well, then you would use the -u command line option. So for example, if you wanted to overwrite and shred, you would do shred -u or -u file1.txt. And finally, after the ethical hacking has gone through all these steps that we present in our wonderful ethical hacking series, documentation is it. You got to be documenting everything you've gone through and be reporting that to the organization that the ethical hacker, that he, she, or they are reporting to, and they need to get their findings. All right, so as we end this entire ethical hacking series, I would like to say that there is this wonderful ethical hacker type of workshop that you can go through on LinkedIn, and that link will also be posted. And yeah, it looks like Joe said, remember to check bash history for credentials, secrets, and other valuables for pivoting before deleting. Yeah. Let's see. But yeah, this link will be in the chat, and so I highly recommend it. I will be going through it too, probably over the summer. And with that, is there any questions for me or her as well? Or any comments? You're welcome to put them in the workshop chat or unmute yourself. And if you're not already, feel free to reach out on with, sorry, feel free to join our social media Discord, which you're obviously already a part of because you're on here, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter and Facebook. And if you have any questions that you just want to email instead of asking right now, our email is on the screen. So I'll just pause here to see if there's any questions or comments.
Sounds like we're good.
Yeah, sounds like it. All right. I will stop sharing my screen. And thank you everyone for joining. The last workshop and presentation of the semester went really well, and I'm excited for what we have planned next semester. I'll hand it over to Rachana.
Thank you, Tala. Thank you, Russell, for the presentation. What a great way to end the semester. Good luck to everyone who's here for your exams and for the rest of the semester. We hope to see you guys at our in-person events next semester. We would love to meet you all face to face finally and have more workshops. We've expanded our officer team this semester quite a lot, which was really exciting. And we created the Discord also this semester. So we finally are streamlining our club, and we have some great stuff planned. So we do hope to see you guys coming to our events. And yeah, that's all. Thank you guys for coming. Have a great rest of your evening. And bye, everyone. Stick around if you have any questions or if you want to chat with us. But other than that, yeah, have a good night.
Hey, great presentations, guys.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you liked it.